If I don't write it down, I'm going to forget it. Would you know it was autumn if you didn't have a sign? And will you remember to pick your own pumpkins unless you've written it down? My name's Julie, I'm the florist that teaches, so welcome to my channel. I do a variety of videos here, ranging from sharing secrets of flower arranging and behind the scenes hints and tips, and when I have time, lots of creative DIY and upcycling projects. For my Pick Your Own Pumpkin sign, I found this old floorboard in our shed, and I've printed out some decals using my Cricut Explore Air. As this is quite a long sign, I've split my templates up into 3 sections and I'm going to work on them one by one. I'm going to start my sign by painting on the pumpkins first of all. So I am peeling off the backing paper and I'm showing you on the top that I got a piece of clear transfer tape. So it's sort of like a sandwich of the clear transfer tape, the black template, and then this papery backing paper, which I need to peel off, revealing the sticky side of the template, which I can put onto my piece of wood. Having removed the backing paper, I then place my template where I want it on my piece of wood, and then I'll take out a scraper, my Cricut scraper, and just firmly push that down in place so the vinyl sticks to the wood. What you can see me doing here is peeling away the transfer paper and gently rocking it from side to side so that I don't lift any of the delicate parts of the template off with the transfer tape. And where any part of the template lifts, I just go back in and rub down on the transfer paper just to make sure it properly adheres. I'm going to be using some Oasis spray paint in the colour orange. It's what I had to hand, but you could use any kind of paint to do this. But because I don't want my spray paint to go onto the other part of the board, I'm masking off that area with some of the backing paper from my template. Having shaken up my can, I then start to add light coats of paint to my template, and as that dries I can add in more coats to deepen up the shade of orange, just to make sure it shows up against my plain wood background. I'm going to add some definition to the stalks of my pumpkins by painting them with some acrylic paint. I am going to use some white first of all, just to give me a good base coverage, and then come in with the paler brown tones on top. As I'm using a stencil, I just need to dot the paint on and don't need to have to be careful about keeping in between the lines. I'm then going to add in another layer, and this is a paint called Truffle, which is a pale brown, just to add a bit more definition at the top of each pumpkin. Having painted all the 3 pumpkin stalks, I'm then going to peel away the template. At this stage the paint is still wet, so I just need to be really careful that I don't smudge anything. With my pumpkins finished, I'm then going to go back to the front of the sign and do exactly the same thing with the Pick Your Own part. I attach the template in exactly the same way, peeling off the backing paper, positioning the template on my piece of wood, and then peeling away the transfer tape. Now I made a bit of a mistake here. I got my white paint out and started to paint my template white, and when I'd finished I suddenly remembered I actually wanted the lettering to be black, but as you'll see at the end it worked out really well. I got a sort of 3D effect on my text, so I was quite pleased with that. An accident, but it turned out really well in the end. Here I am with my black acrylic paint, so I squeeze a small amount onto a saucer and I'm using a sponge to bounce the paint onto the template. This is actually a sponge roller from one of those mini rollers that you use to paint behind your radiator. I ended up applying about 3 coats of paint to make sure the text was actually black rather than a paler shade of grey. And then I peel away the template, and I'm using my weeding tool just to pull away the small pieces of vinyl, the O from the centre of the O and the rounded section from the letter R, and just work my way along the edge of the sign. As you can see, the mistake with my lettering when I put the white paint on first of all has actually worked out really well, and it's created this shadowing effect which adds a little bit of extra dimension and depth and authenticity to my sign. So having stenciled Pick Your Own at the front of the sign and my pumpkins at the end of the sign, I just need to add the word pumpkin into the middle. So for the third and final time with this particular sign, I am using exactly the same technique, so you'll now be an expert at how to create and paint your own signs using a template. But I speeded up the film. I quite enjoy watching this super fast, so I hope you enjoy the transformation too. And here's the finished sign. I'm just weeding out the last of the letters and I will leave this to dry. In fact, it's not quite finished. I decided to put a little bit of distressing on with a dry brush technique, so I'll show you that in the next clip. For this dry brushing technique, you really do need the tiniest amount of paint. I've really got too much on my saucer there, so I'm dabbing a bit of paint onto the paintbrush and then doing everything I can to take off all the excess, and then stroking it gently across the sign just to give it an aged, worn, a weathered look. So you'll have to let me know in the comments whether you think it added anything to the sign or whether you would have left it as is. For my next sign, I'm going to be using an acrylic vinyl, and I've actually bought this sign for £1 from my local charity shop, and somebody has obviously spent a great deal of effort in doing their own sign using this penguin. So the blue is a paint effect on the back, and then the penguin has just been cut out and glued on in place. So I'm using my scraper tool to get rid of the paper, and in a moment you'll see me spraying it with some water just to make removal a little bit easier. Once I'd peeled off all the penguin, I gave my board a wipe over and dried it off, and the next step is to paint the background. So I'm going to paint my sign grey. So you see me here mixing up black and white paint, and I'm making sure I've got enough to cover the whole sign. As I haven't actually got ready-made grey paint, I don't want to have to mix up another batch and try and match the shade perfectly. So I'm using a decorating brush here to do the painting rather than a craft brush, and putting my paint strokes to run parallel with the length of the sign, and I do eventually paint around the edges of the sign as well. Originally I was just going to paint the top, but then I had some dribbles and paint splashes down the side, so I did the edges too. As I left my paint to dry, I got to work on making my vinyl sign, spelling out autumn leaves, which I made on my Cricut machine, and here I am weeding out the sign, all ready to go. Once I've weeded my sign, I then lay a piece of the clear transfer tape over the top, and here you see me peeling off the backing tape, and once I've done that, I will flip the sign over and position it where I want it to be on the front of my sign. The great thing about making your own vinyl decals on a Cricut machine is you can size them to the precise size you need. So I don't need to measure up here, I can eye it up because I know that I have designed my vinyl to lay exactly on the size of the grey painted wooden sign. So I'm just adjusting it by eye. I'll smooth it down with my fingers and then go over it with my scraper and then peel back the tape, and then I'll have a really professional looking finish. And this is what the finished sign looks like. I'm so pleased with the way it turned out. So you'll have to let me know in the comments, do you prefer the slick, sophisticated look of this autumn leaves sign, or do you prefer the more rustic, pick your own pumpkin sign? That's all from me for now, and I'll see you next time.